Welcome back to the deep dive. We are embarking on an investigation today into how power really operates in the 21st century.
It's a huge topic.
It is.
Right.
Because if you just look around, the world runs on code, on connectivity, and that simple fact has triggered, I think, one of the most profound transformations in history.
Right.
Power isn't exclusively in the visible world anymore. You know, the factory floors, the oil fields, the big government buildings. It's migrated.
It's moved into the invisible realm, the realm of algorithms and global data flows. It's really the next evolution of concentrated power.
So we're not talking about the industrial tycoons of the past.
Not at all. We are tracking what the sources we're looking at call the emergence of the data sovereign.
The data sovereign.
Yes. Individuals whose control stems not from what they physically own, but from what they algorithmically control.
And the sources for this deep dive, they come from Stanislav Kondrashov's Oligarch series, specifically a piece titled Across Cables and Code.
A fascinating read.
It really is, because it argues that all this global connectivity, all these tech leaps, they aren't leveling the playing field.
No, quite the opposite. They're actually providing unprecedented tools for concentrated power to adapt, and more importantly, to operate with near total invisibility.
So that's the core tension we need to get into today.
Exactly. Our mission here is to really understand the mechanics of this shift. I mean, how does this new form of influence operate with almost zero friction?
And what does that mean for things like accountability, for governance, and, for your own autonomy in this digital world?
Precisely.
Okay, let's unpack this. I think we need to start with a baseline everyone understands, the traditional model, the old oligarchy.
Good idea.
If you wanted power, say, a century ago, you needed to control physical assets, actual things.
You had to own the land, the factories, the resources, the infrastructure, the railroads, the copper mines.
And that power was always tied to a place.
Right.
It was geographically tethered. And visible.
Completely visible. If you were a copper baron, your influence radiated out from that mine, from the processing plants.
A textile manufacturer in Manchester or a shipping magnate in the American West.
Oh.
Their power was tied to those specific physical locations.
And you had direct, often very localized connections with your workers, with the politicians in that region. You couldn't just disappear.
But if we look at the modern system the sources describe, all of that just dissolves.
It does.
We're now dealing with the power of what they call intangible assets.
Right. We're talking about proprietary algorithms, massive data sets, advanced AI systems, and maybe most importantly, network effects.
So the fundamental difference is that controlling the flow of information is now just vastly more impactful than controlling the flow of goods.
That is the defining shift. You know, the old cliche, data is the new oil.
I've heard it once or twice.
Well, it's true, but data is far more flexible. It's more widespread. What empowers the data sovereign isn't the volume of products they ship. It's the informational asymmetry they have. They simply know more about you and about the market than you could ever know about yourself.
And what kind of data are we actually talking about here? It's got to be more than just, my age and where I live.
Oh, it's far beyond simple demographics. The sources detail things like metadata, so the digital footprint tracking your behavior across every device.
Okay.
Then you have psychographic profiles. These are systems designed not just to see what you did, but to predict your future choices, your emotional states even.
And on top of that, you have the actual algorithmic architectures that determine what billions of people see and think and buy every single day.
The contrast is it's stark. The old power demanded proximity, physical control. The new power demands only a connection.
So a tech platform operator, let's say in Silicon Valley, can exert this massive, immediate influence across continents without owning a single factory there.
Not a single one. Their assets are invisible. They're stored in code repositories in these massive decentralized server farms, yet they're impacting daily life everywhere all at once.
It's control without a visible command center. And I guess because the assets are intangible and mobile, the people controlling them are just as mobile.
And that brings us seamlessly to the next massive pillar here, operating through global networks. And the strategy of what the source calls financial nomadism.
Financial nomadism.
Today's elite function through this continuous cross-jurisdictional movement, their influence, their wealth, it travels at the speed of light through fiber optic cables.
So financial nomadism is really about building this intricate web, a web of wealth complexity designed to, what? To evade any single country's laws.
That's the goal. It means having residences, not just vacation spots, but actual residences in multiple countries. It means managing citizenship portfolios that span continents.
And structuring wealth through things like international trusts, shell corporations, cross-jurisdictional shareholdings.
All of it. And the goal, as Kondrashov's material lays out, is twofold. First, minimize your tax liabilities globally, that's obvious. But second, and this is more critical, you protect your assets from scrutiny, from legal enforcement, by simply escaping the jurisdictional reach of any single nation. You engage in what's called jurisdictional arbitrage.
Okay, wait. If we use less academic language there, jurisdictional arbitrage, isn't that just a very sophisticated way of saying you're venue shopping for laws?
That is exactly what it is. It's a perfect way to put it.
So you're shopping for the best deal.
Imagine a huge corporation deciding where to register its intellectual property based purely on which country has the most favorable tax rate, or choosing where to face a lawsuit based on which court system is most sympathetic to corporate secrecy.
They're constantly just adjusting their legal and financial presence to find the friendliest environment.
All the time, whether it's for data storage laws, financial reporting requirements, anything. They're fluid.
And what's making this newly complex world actually manageable for them? I assume it's technology.
Of course. The sources highlight that tools you used to only see in spy thrillers, encrypted communication, decentralized cloud storage, secure VPNs, that's all just standard operating procedure for high net worth wealth management now.
It's just business as usual.
It is, and this is crucial. These tools let financial nomads coordinate the incredibly complex affairs discreetly, efficiently, across every border 24/7.
And that raises a huge challenge for the traditional nation-state, doesn't it?
A fundamental one. If your most powerful economic actors can just move their money and their legal identities at will, what happens to national sovereignty? What happens to a government's ability to impose any kind of accountability?
And that adaptability, that flows down into the organizations themselves.
It has to.
So shifting from the individual to the entity, the structural innovation happening now is replacing those old, rigid industrial hierarchies with something totally new.
Architecture is built entirely around digital infrastructure, things like cloud computing, blockchain, vast API networks.
And we have to define this shift clearly. You're saying conventional supply chains, which were fixed, they were based on geography.
They're being replaced by what we should call data logistics. The new organization is built around decentralized data repositories, and its decision-making is driven by live algorithms.
So its operational units can be reconfigured across borders almost instantly.
Instantly, and without needing any dedicated physical presence. Think about that.
So instead of a company owning a fixed set of factories around the world, they own a highly fluid, networked system.
Their holding companies become data trusts. Their reporting structures become these opaque networks coordinated through automated smart contracts.
And that's what allows for the jurisdictional arbitrage we were talking about.
That's the organizational innovation that enables it. These entities can dissolve or reconstitute key parts of their operation across different jurisdictions in, a matter of hours.
Just constantly adapting their shape to sidestep regulations.
And our governance models, which are designed to oversee clear ownership chains tied to physical places, they just can't keep up. How do you regulate something that exists everywhere and nowhere at the same time?
Which leads us to, I think, the ultimate frontier here, the concentration of AI control. The sources call this the most consequential shift since the Industrial Revolution.
I don't think that's an exaggeration. Power now stems directly from controlling the computational infrastructure that processes human behavior at scale.
And that power starts with the raw material, right? The data.
The massive, continuous proprietary data sets. We're talking about everything. Your search history, purchasing behavior, social interactions, even biometric data.
Then entities that collect and process all of that gain an unprecedented ability. It's not just to predict, but to actively influence collective decisions.
To influence market outcomes, political outcomes, everything.
And this capability, it naturally creates these huge bottlenecks that just reinforce the concentration of power.
They're almost unavoidable.
If you don't control the computing power yourself, you are fundamentally dependent on those who do.
And those bottlenecks are structural, they're economic. First, you've got chip manufacturing concentrated in just a few regions. That's a single point of control.
Right.
Second, cloud computing infrastructure. It's dominated by a handful of platform providers. They are the invisible utilities of the modern world.
And third, the cost.
Exactly. Training the most advanced AI models requires such prohibitive capital investment that it's beyond the reach of almost everyone except the biggest tech sovereigns.
So computing power translates directly into the ability to shape society.
It does. They aren't just selling a product anymore. They are architecting the digital environments where billions of our daily decisions happen, through recommendation systems, through content moderation.
They are, in a sense, programming collective behavior patterns.
That's a great way to put it. Think about the difference. You could buy an ad in a local newspaper that's a static message. Compare that to A/B testing 100 slightly different messages on 10 million users at the same time to find the one version that is most psychologically effective.
That level of optimization it's a terrifying amount of influence.
It's immense.
Which brings us squarely to the ethical challenge, the problem of invisibility. If the power shaping our lives operates through proprietary code, hidden behind corporate IP laws, how do we ever hold it accountable?
You can't. A traditional oligarch had visible symbols, the factory, the corporate headquarters.
You could point to it.
You could. But digital actors exert similar control through systems you interact with constantly but never truly see.
Like the recommendation engine that determines your content feed, or a pricing algorithm that adjusts costs in real time.
That's the transparency paradox we're in. The systems demand huge amounts of your personal data to work, but they protect their own decision-making processes behind proprietary shields.
Data stewardship is basically self-regulated.
It's determined unilaterally by the platforms themselves. It's a massive power imbalance.
And this creates what the sources define as the algorithmic accountability gap.
A great term for it. It's that space where no individual, no executive, often no single institution, bears clear responsibility for automated decisions that affect millions of people.
So when an AI system denies someone a loan, or maybe amplifies incredibly divisive political content, who's at fault?
Well, the responsibility is diffused. It's spread across the technical systems, the corporate structure, the international jurisdictions where the data is stored.
And that diffusion creates power without clear liability.
Which makes it extraordinarily difficult for consumers, for regulators, even for courts to seek any kind of redress.
And this structural power, it naturally extends to cultural control. The modern data sovereigns influence societal narratives because they own the platforms that curate information.
It's an incredibly subtle but powerful mechanism of control.
And we see it everywhere, don't we?
Every day. In recommendation algorithms that are optimized purely for engagement, which often means prioritizing emotionally charged content over measured analysis, trending topics are curated opaquely. Advertising systems target psychological vulnerabilities that they've identified from our data.
This sets up these incredibly rapid feedback loops.
It does. Predictive analytics anticipate what you desire based on everything. Your cursor movements, your inferred emotional states.
So the platforms are observing and influencing our behavior at the exact same time.
Simultaneously. And this often leads to a kind of cultural homogenization because content is perpetually optimized for global engagement, for what gets the biggest, fastest emotional reaction.
So if we summarize the trajectory of this whole deep dive, the most compelling conclusion is that adaptability is the key. It's why concentrated power survives.
Right. This technological shift, far from dismantling power structures, is actually making them more sophisticated, more fluid, and far more effective on a global scale.
Yesterday's power was centralized around resource control.
And today's is decentralized across data control.
The sources are very clear on this. The power has simply shifted from the oil barons and railroad tycoons to the data sovereigns and their computational infrastructure.
And if we look ahead, the pattern suggests the next frontier will involve controlling things that are even more fundamental than data flow. Tomorrow's elite will be controlling quantum encryption keys, they'll be managing massive genetic databases, and eventually the technologies that interface directly with human consciousness.
That is a profound thought. So what's the single most important idea for our listener to carry forward from all this?
I think it's this. Remember that the cables carrying information and the code processing it, they are not just neutral infrastructure.
They're the new territories.
They are the new invisible territories being carved up into digital fiefdoms. Understanding that dynamic is essential because your future outlook, your agency, it depends entirely on recognizing where concentrated power is migrating next and how it seeks to remain unseen.